In Lesson 4, we're going to begin looking at formatting our forms to make them look more professional. Over the last couple of lessons, we built this customer form, and it's coming along nicely, but it needs some work. It needs to be formatted to look nice. It's a little bland. It needs some color. We also want to change some things like, for example, this customer sense field lines up on the right side of the text box, whereas everything else lines up to the left. So let's start by going back to Design View. The first thing that I'd like to do is give the form background a little color. That white background just isn't doing it for me. So click somewhere here on the background. Now when you do, notice this band right here that says Detail is now highlighted. You can click on the Detail band too if you want to. And we'll talk exactly about what that Detail band means in a future lesson. But for now, just make sure it's highlighted. Now, come up here under Form Design Tools and click on the Format tab. Right here you'll see a font group. Now most of the things right now on this menu are disabled because you can't change the bold or the left justify for the background of the form, but you can change the background color. Now, click on the little down arrow here to open up the color palette, and you can pick from either the theme colors or the standard colors. Now, the theme colors change depending on which theme you pick, and I'll show you what a theme is in just a minute. Or you can pick from the standard colors. The standard colors never change regardless of what theme you pick. So if you always want to make sure you have a light blue, for example, pick one of the standard colors. And there's light blue. Maybe that's a little too dark for you. Drop it down. Maybe a lighter powder blue. All right, just a hint of color. We can do the same things with the objects on our form. For example, customer ID is an auto number. We can't change it. Whenever I have a field like that the user can't change, I like to make the background gray. So again, in the font group here, drop this down, and let's pick gray. I'm going to go with this one right, let's go with that one right there, medium gray 1. And now, the background of that text box is gray, which visually communicates to the user, hey, you can't change that. Now if I take a look at my form in Form View, I'll click on Design, and I'll switch back over here to Form View. Now you can see what my form looks like. I've got the powder blue background, and my customer ID is now grayed out, so the user knows he can't change it. Let's go back to Design View. You can also change the foreground color of items. For example, let's say that our labels over here are too difficult to read. That gray on the blue background is kind of hard to see. Let's make our labels black. So click on the label. Again, go back to Format. Here's the background color. Now here's the foreground color. I'll drop this down. And again, you can pick from the theme colors or the standard colors. For right now, just go with the standard color. I'll go with the standard black. And now I've just changed that label's foreground color. If you want to select all of those labels to change them all at once, you can, again, click here and draw a box that just touches them, just like that. Or here's another trick. Let me show you a different trick. I'll just click here to unselect those all. See this ruler bar across the top? If I move my mouse in that ruler bar, notice I have a downward pointing arrow. If I click anywhere inside of here, I can then select items by just moving like that. That'll select all the items directly below the region that I clicked on in the ruler. You can just click once, and that will select all those items. You can even click in the vertical ruler to select those items. See that? Click and drag, and that will select all the items in between. All right, so click once, or you can click and drag, and that selects those items. But which ones do I want? Well, I want just these labels over here. So I'll just click right here, and that will select all of those labels. Now I can come up here and change the foreground color, the font color. Now, Since I've already picked the color using the palette, I don't have to open the palette again. Notice the color in the palette is black still. So I'll click there, and now all of my labels are changed to black. These other labels I'll have to click manually. Click on that one. Now, you can also hold down the Control key right now, and then go click, click, click. The Control key allows you to select multiple items that aren't necessarily next to each other. So again, show you that again. I can click on this one, hold down the Control key, and then select additional objects. That adds those to the selection. And then again, I can come up here and change my color. Let's see what our form looks like now. I'll go back to Design, and then back to Form View. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I still have some adjustments to make. Notice how all the text values line up on the left side of the text box, whereas the numbers and the dates and the currency values all line up on the right side of the text box. I'd like to make everything more uniform, so let's have all of the values on the field line up on the left side of the text box. Now, in addition to Form View and Design View, there's also something called Layout View. Now, Layout View was added in Access 2007 and expanded upon a little bit in Access 2010. Layout View is kind of like a hybrid between Form View and Design View. One of the pet peeves with older versions of Access was that in order to see your changes, you had to flip back and forth between Design View and Form View. So with Layout View now, we can modify the layout and some of the formatting of the form while still seeing the data displayed in the form. All right, I just switched over to Layout View. The first thing I want to change is this customer ID. So I'll go over here to Format, and I'll pick, there's Align Left right here, Center, right, and Align Right. I'm going to go with Align Left. That'll make sure that value lines up on the left side of the cell. All of your other standard formatting options are here as well. You can change the font size, bold, italics, and underline, and so on. If you're familiar with Word and Excel, you know how to use all these things. I also want to do the same thing with customer cents, employees, discount rate, and credit limit. First thing though, credit limit, notice I got those little pound symbols in there, the number signs. That's because the field is too narrow to display the data that's there. So let's make this a little wider. Now that's one of the things you can do in Layout View is to change the shape of your text boxes. So I'll click on that, and then I'll just resize that a little bit, just like that. Perfect. Maybe a tiny bit more. Now to keep things uniform, let's make these the same size. And there we go. Now let's line these up to the left. You can't click and drag a box in Layout View, but you can use the Control-Click method that I showed you a minute ago. So click on the first one, hold down the Control key, and then click, click, and let's get this one too while we're at it. Click. I've got all four of those text boxes selected. Now I can come up top and hit Align Left, and now all the values line up on the left sides of the cells. Another thing you can modify in Layout View are the labels. Some of them, for example, like Customer ID, I'm going to click on it again a second time, and then we can change that to Customer Space ID. Press Enter. Is active, maybe change it to just say active, right? Click on it a second time. It's not quite a double click. You have to click on it to select it, wait a second, then click on it a second time, and I can delete the is in there. Just make that say active. Remember, these are just labels now. Access doesn't care what the labels say. All right, down here on the bottom, we have customer cents. Put a space in there. And then credit limit. Put a space in there. And that's how we can edit our labels in Layout View. Yes, you can move fields around in Layout View, but I don't recommend it. There's a special thing called a form layout that we're going to talk about in a future lesson. Moving things around in Layout View without using a form layout gets kind of confusing, so we'll talk about that in the future. For now, if you want to move objects around, go back to Design View. Just click on Design, and then switch back over here to Design View. And now you can move things around as much as you want. Notice sometimes when you switch into layout view and then back to design view, sometimes Access decides to change the dimensions of your form just a little bit. That's another one of my pet peeves, and the folks at Microsoft, if they're watching this, should add that to their bug report.